My fiancé looked me straight in the eye and said I invited my ex to our wedding. If you loved me, you'd understand. No argument, no apology, just that line so calm it almost sounded logical. I smiled, nodded, and said I understood. Then, in the same breath, I decided exactly how the story would end. 1 week later, under the same chandeliers where he planned to toast our maturity, the entire room fell silent. Every secret, every lie, every text laid out in candlelight. And that was only the beginning. Before I tell you how I turned that dinner into a reckoning hit, like drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and tell me what would you have done, I've always believed relationships survive on truth. It's what I built my life on, clear words. No games, no half-truths hidden under smiles. In my work, I broker partnerships for a living, make people shake hands, and mean it. Maybe that's why Ryan fascinated me. At first, he looked like a man who honored his word. Clean suits, calm voice, the kind of man who always said, "Don't worry, I've got it handled." We met 3 years ago at a client gala. He spilled champagne on my folder, apologized like it was the end of the world, and spent the rest of the night making sure I smiled. I mistook attentiveness for depth. Everyone around us did too. My mother adored him. My friends called him the safe bet. I used to think safety was love. Lana, his ex, was a ghost I thought we'd buried. She came up in stories always wrapped in nostalgia. "She's the one who taught me what real love looks like," he said once, laughing. I remember the sting of that sentence, but I didn't call him out. I just tucked it away like a splinter you pretend not to feel. We built our engagement like a project plan: venues, deposits, tastings. I had a spreadsheet for everything, color-coded tabs, and printed receipts filed neatly in a folder. Ryan teased me for being too organized, but I liked control. It made me feel safe. That folder would become my weapon later, though I didn't know it then. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything cracked. We were having dinner at my apartment, white wine, leftover pasta, our phones between us on the table. He was scrolling through guest names when he said almost casually, "Oh, I invited Lana to the wedding." I froze. "You what? She's married now, Clara." It would be weird not to invite her. "If you loved me, you'd understand." I remember the sound of the fork clinking against the plate. My pulse was loud in my ears. I waited for him to laugh, to say it was a joke. He didn't. He just looked at me like I was being unreasonable. So I smiled. "You're right. I do understand." He relaxed, thinking it was over. But something inside me clicked into place, a quiet decision. I'd spent my life believing truth always finds a way out. If he wanted maturity, I'd show him what that really looked like, and in that moment I knew he'd just invited his own ending. For a week after that dinner, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, that maybe this was modern love, civil, progressive, full of grown-up gestures. That's what Ryan kept saying. "You're taking it the wrong way," he told me one morning while tying his tie. "It's not a big deal. I just don't want things to be awkward. We're adults, Clara. We can handle this." Adults. That word started to taste bitter. I tried to test my own boundaries. Each time I asked a simple question, he turned it back on me. "Why are you so insecure? Can't you trust me for once? I thought you wanted a man who wasn't threatened by his past." Gaslighting so gentle it almost sounded reasonable. So I played along. I smiled through dinners, nodded through guest list edits, even joked with my mom that we're such a mature couple. Inside, I was collecting data dates, reactions, the tiny shifts in his tone, because something wasn't adding up. He started keeping his phone face down, showering with the door locked, late-night client calls that ended with him returning to bed smelling faintly of wine and peppermint. The signs weren't new. I just never allowed myself to see them. Then, one Thursday, I caught a glimpse of a notification lighting up his screen while he was in the shower. Just 2 words: "missed you." No name, just a preview bubble, but my gut already knew. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. I opened his laptop, synced to his phone. There it was, messages with Lana stretching back months, little flirts disguised as nostalgia. "Remember our trip to Vermont?" Those were the days. And one from him. "If you'd said the word, I'd never have left." I didn't cry. I just sat there staring at the blue glow of the screen, the taste of metal in my mouth. Then I saw the part that made my stomach drop. Lana Ethan's overseas next month. I could make the wedding. Ethan, her husband, overseas. The lie. At that point, something inside me went silent. Not broken, just still. I looked up his name, found him easily, Ethan Pierce, financial consultant, Chicago. Married, not traveling anywhere. Recent post, tagged in the city. I stared at his photo for a long moment before typing, "Hi, Ethan. You don't know me, but I'm engaged to Ryan Cooper. I think there's something you should be aware of." He replied within an hour. Calm, direct, furious beneath the surface. We agreed to meet. Neutral ground, no drama, no shouting, just truth. When we met at a quiet cafe downtown, he looked like a man who'd been gaslit in the same language I'd learned to translate. We ordered coffee. I said, "They're not just lying to us, Ethan. They're lying to each other." He nodded once. "Then maybe it's time we give them a night to remember." The week before the rehearsal dinner stretched like a storm waiting to break. Ryan was all charm again, bringing me flowers, calling me his calm. It might have worked if I hadn't already seen what calm cost. Each night I'd sit at my dining table surrounded by wedding folders and quiet fury. Every receipt, every deposit, every vendor was under my name. A small but powerful detail. I highlighted it in yellow the way I did for clients when something needed attention. Oliver, my best friend from work, stopped by one evening with takeout. "You look like you're planning a war," he said, glancing at the sticky notes, the timeline, the seating chart. "I'm not planning one," I told him. "I'm ending one." He stayed silent for a beat, then grinned. "You're terrifying when you're calm." I smiled. "Good." Meanwhile, Ethan and I kept our communication strictly professional, two people drafting justice like a contract. We compared messages, confirmed the patterns. Same phrasing, same timing, same manipulation. He'd confronted Lana once softly, and she'd called him paranoid. "You're imagining things, Ethan," she'd said. "It's harmless." Harmless. Like Ryan's. "If you loved me, you'd understand." By Thursday, the guest list was finalized. I checked it, pretending to approve the floral arrangements while Ryan stood beside me. His hand brushed mine like nothing had changed. "Lana's flying in early," he said. "I'll make sure she sits near us so it's not awkward." "Oh," I asked lightly. "Where are you putting her? Table 2, close to the head table, but not too close." "Smart," I said, and took note of it. Table 2. Perfect view. That night, I told my mother I might be late for the dinner, that I had an errand. She looked up from her tea. "Are you sure you're all right, sweetheart? You seem... still." "I am," I said. "Still is good." On the day of the rehearsal dinner, I woke before dawn. The apartment felt weightless. I ironed the black sheath dress, pinned my hair back, and fastened the silver earrings I always wore to big presentations, the ones that caught light and attention. At noon, Ethan texted, "We're still on." I replied, "Yes. We'll arrive together." By 5, the plan was set. We'd walk in 30 minutes late, long enough for them to get comfortable just before the main course. No confrontation rehearsed, no raised voices. The truth didn't need volume. It only needed timing. In the car, Ethan asked, "You sure you want to do this publicly?" I watched the city lights blur past. Ryan wanted an audience. Let's give him one. When we pulled up to Glassview Manor, I could see the warm glow spilling from the tall windows. Laughter drifted out, soft music, the clinking of glasses. I stepped out first, heels steady on the cobblestone. The air smelled like rain and champagne. Ethan offered his arm. "Ready?" he asked. I looked at the entrance where everything I once wanted waited to collapse. I've never been readier. The dining room at Glassview Manor shimmered under amber light. 40 guests, soft jazz silver cutlery glinting like teeth. Ryan stood near the head table, perfectly rehearsed smile in place, greeting relatives like a man auditioning for Best Fiancé alive. He didn't see me at first, just the shape of me walking in, followed by Ethan Pierce, the man he swore was out of the country. The air shifted immediately. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. The violinist faltered on a note. Then Ryan turned, eyes widening as if he'd seen a ghost. "Clara," he said, relief washing across his face. I was starting to think he stopped when Ethan stepped beside me. "Good evening," Ethan said smoothly. "Hope we're not too late." Ryan's color drained. Ethan, what are you doing here? Before he could gather himself, Lana appeared from behind the wine tower, holding her clutch like a shield. The second she saw her husband, her jaw slackened. Ethan, you weren't supposed to be. I smiled, resting a hand on Ethan's arm. Oh, but he was. Ryan told me Lana's husband couldn't make it, so I thought it would be lovely to invite him as my +1. Gasps rippled through the room. Silverware paused midair. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Ryan stammered, "Clara, this isn't what you think." "Then what is it?" Ryan, I asked softly. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and your married ex have been very sentimental lately." Lana tried to cut in. "We're just friends, Clara. Don't twist things." Ethan chuckled low. "Friends who send late-night messages about missing each other. Friends who plan to see how they feel when they see her in the dress. You remember that text, right?" He turned his phone around. The screen glowed with their conversation. Lana's eyes went wide. "You went through my no, Ethan," said his voice sharp. "You left your iPad signed in. And Clara here, she found the rest." Every guest leaned closer like the table itself was breathing. The manager peeked in from the hall, unsure whether to intervene. Ryan's father stood abruptly. "What the hell is going on?" I looked straight at him. "Your son invited his ex to our wedding and lied to both of us about her husband being overseas. Meanwhile, they've been playing nostalgia while we paid deposits and wrote vows." The word deposits caught Ryan off guard. He blinked. "What do you mean, deposits?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a neat folder, the same one he once mocked me for keeping. I placed it gently on the table beside his wine glass. "Every vendor, every check, every payment under my name." He opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Clara, please don't." I said, "You wanted maturity. Remember adults handling things gracefully? This is me being an adult." Lana tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. "You're making a scene. You're embarrassing yourself." Ethan crossed his arms. "No, Lana. For once, you're the entertainment." She glared at him, at Ryan, like she couldn't decide who to blame first. Ryan took a step forward. "Let's talk outside." "Why, I asked." "So you can gaslight me privately?" "No, Ryan. You made this public when you invited her. We'll finish it public." He opened his mouth to argue, but his own mother spoke first. "Ryan, please tell me this isn't true." Silence. That silence told everyone everything. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I lifted my glass the crystal-catching candlelight and said, "To maturity, may we all learn the difference between honesty and performance." A few people actually raised their glasses with me. Sophie, my cousin. Ethan steady beside me. Even the violinist who resumed playing something slow and mournful. Ryan reached out again, voice cracking now. "Clara, I made a mistake. I didn't cheat. I swear nothing happened. Yet I said." "You were saving that for the honeymoon." A few muffled laughs. Not cruel, just the kind that breaks tension. Lana's face flushed. "You can't prove anything physical." "You're right," I said, pulling a printed message from the folder. "But you did write this." "If you give me the word, I'll stop the wedding." And Ryan replied, "Let's see how I feel when I see her walk down the aisle." The room fell utterly still. Someone dropped a fork. A candle flickered out. Ryan whispered, "Clara, please." I stepped closer, close enough for him to see exactly how calm I was. "I loved you, Ryan. I defended you when people said you were too polished to be real. But this," I gestured around the room, "this is who you are when you think no one's watching." Ethan placed his check card on the table. "Dinner's on me. Consider it closure." Lana tried to grab his arm. "Ethan, don't do this here." He looked at her, his voice level. "You did this here." And then he walked out. I turned to the manager hovering by the door. "Could we get the bill, please? I think we're done celebrating." Ryan stood frozen, pale sweating, watching everything unravel like a man finally realizing he'd lost control of his own story. As I passed him on the way out, I stopped long enough to whisper, "You wanted everyone to see how mature we were." "Congratulations, Ryan, they just did." The click of my heels echoed down the marble hall, each step lighter than the one before. Outside, the night air was cool, almost electric. Ethan was waiting by the valet hands in his pockets, the faintest smirk tugging at his mouth. "How's that for a rehearsal?" he asked quietly. I smiled. Perfect run-through. The real ceremony's canceled. He nodded, offering his hand to help me into the car. For a long moment, I watched the manor glowing behind us, laughter and shock still spilling through the windows. Then I said the line that would stay with me forever. Some dinners are for celebration. This one was for truth. The night after the rehearsal dinner, I slept better than I had in months. No nightmares, no second guessing, just the sound of rain tapping against the windows, washing away everything that didn't belong to me anymore. By morning, my phone was chaos. Dozens of texts, missed calls, screenshots flying through group chats. Someone had filmed part of the dinner, my toast, Ryan's face, Lana's denial. It was already circulating among our circle like wildfire. Ryan's mother called first, her voice trembling. "Clara, this could have been private." "It was private," I said, until they turned it into a performance. Then the silence stretched long enough for truth to settle in. Lana went full damage control online, posting quotes about miscommunication and emotional growth. But the comments section turned fast. People didn't buy her script anymore. Ethan quietly unfollowed her, then filed for separation the next day. Ryan showed up at my apartment 3 days later. He looked smaller somehow, as if the suit didn't fit anymore. "I just wanted to talk," he said softly. "I know," I replied, blocking the door with my hand. "But I don't." He tried smiling like old times. "You're really walking away?" I met his eyes. "No, Ryan, I'm walking home." He didn't have an answer for that. He just stood there blinking before leaving down the same hallway where we once planned our future. A week later, the vendors confirmed all the refunds under my name. The check came through heavy with irony. I booked a one-way ticket to Scotland. My mother hugged me at the airport and whispered, "Stillness looks good on you." On the cliffs of St. Abbs, I let the wind pull through my hair. The ocean stretched endless and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone to choose me, because I already had. I used to think love meant endurance, staying forgiving, proving I could handle whatever came my way. But love without respect is just quiet self-erasure. Ryan taught me that. Or maybe I taught myself the moment I stopped trying to earn what should have been given freely. If someone ever asks you to understand their betrayal, don't. Understanding isn't maturity, it's surrender. Now, every time I see a candlelit dinner, I remember that night at Glassview Manor. The silence, the truth, the freedom that followed. And if you've ever walked away from someone who underestimated you, you know exactly how good that silence sounds. Tell me where you're listening from and what truth you'd toast to if you could. Hit subscribe. Stay for more stories.